Alrighty. Hello, good afternoon. Good afternoon. I'm Rochelle Graham, and this is Homeschooling with Healthy Communication. I just want to thank Monica for having me. This is an awesome platform, awesome thing you're doing. I just want to go ahead and just talk about some of the reasons why I homeschool. I have four children, and they range in ages from 10 to all the way down to 6. So I have two boys and two girls. So I'm pretty much very busy. The reason why my husband and I decided to homeschool was because we wanted to give our kids a different mindset than I guess we had growing up. Normally, from what I hear from other people, is homeschooling is not the norm. It was definitely not the norm in my family. So we decided to do something that was just outrageous, extraordinary to a lot of people. We wanted to protect our children from the racial disparities that happen within our education system, especially in America. Predominantly, it's saturated with predominantly white homeschoolers who are from suburban and rural communities. So it was unheard of in the Black community, in a lot of communities, but especially the Black community. So we just wanted to do something different to give our kids, the extra push, especially with my older son. He had language delays, and I just didn't feel the school was bringing the magic out of him. So that's what we decided to do. We said, you know what, I'm a school counselor. My husband, was able to work outside the home, and I was able to stay home, and that's what we decided to do. And through the process of homeschooling, I can tell you in the beginning, it was very messy. It was just like, what are we doing? I still had that system mind of being in a brick and mortar school. So I had to learn how to de-school my mind as well as de-school my children's minds as well. So I was still in that process. Like, we have to do everything the way a brick and mortar school does. We have to wake up at 8 o'clock, get these worksheets done. Let's do math, let's do science, let's boom, 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 boom. Let's sit down, do worksheets and busy work and all that. And then I realized in the process that it wasn't helping. The reason why I homeschooled in the first place was to be liberated and was to liberate my children's minds. So I said to myself, there's something that I have to do differently. If I'm going to homeschool, I need to homeschool. If I'm going to do school at home, then I'm going to do school at home, which is the big difference of what's going on now. Because of the quarantine, people are doing a lot of school at home. I'm not saying that they're not homeschooling, but homeschooling is a little bit different. It's more so giving your kids the freedom to be themselves, giving them that freedom to be able to de-school themselves, unschool themselves from the norm. So I said, let me find a way to communicate better with my children. Let me find a way to be able to bring that magic out of them, to make them not only get an education, but have a lifelong love for learning. And how do we do that? Well, I had to communicate differently with my children. Now, homeschooling is a very different, it's a process in which you are the parent and you are the teacher. So it's it's definitely difficult to kind of create that boundary sometimes. But as a parent, you're the first teacher of your child anyway. So there you go. That's right there. Your child is going to look to you for that love of learning. So I had to change my mindset. I had to love learning. I had to go back and, find out, how was education communicated to me, as a child, as a teen, and how can I change my mindset and still kind of get that love for learning and put it into my children. And so what I did is I ended up helping my children thrive in their different gifts. And the only way that I was able to find out what the gifts were of each child was through fostering that healthy communication. It was almost like I would say, a dual empowerment. We were empowering each other. So that's really how education should look, or that's how learning should look. It's when the teacher is empowering the student is empowering the teacher. So we're learning together, So it was just, it was like this emotional freedom that we had. So I remember I did a conference before where I talked about the key points into healthy communication. And so there are some 4 ways in which I help my children effectively communicate with me, and how I helped myself effectively communicate with my kids. It's a acronym that I like to use. It's called LIFE. And I gave myself bullet points. So I created this acronym called LIFE, LIFE. And the first letter in the acronym is L. And basically, the L means listen. I had to become a better listener, a more attentive listener. I had to listen to what was not being said a lot of times with my own children. I had to be able to discern, exactly what my child was saying, sometimes without saying it. Listening requires a lot of energy, a lot of practice. And that's something that we don't usually practice just on a normal basis. A lot of us will, have a conversation with each other without really actively listening. Active listening requires, understanding the person and being empathic towards the person you're having a conversation with, and not focusing on the next thing that you're trying to say. And that parent-child relationship is so important, especially because I'm not only their parent, I'm also their teacher in different senses of the word. So I had to gain that rapport over again, to be honest with you. I had to gain that trust. So I had to actually learn how to actively listen to my children. I had to put what was going on with me kind of away for a second. And if my child, had something to say, I had to really ask those open-ended questions after we had certain conversations, like how were you feeling at that point, or what did you feel about that? Those open-ended conversations, instead of just giving my child a command or a list of things to do. I had to become my child's partner, and that was unheard of. And that's unheard of in I would say, not just in my family, but in the culture of a parent-child relationship. The parent is the authoritative person, the child is supposed to be subordinate. And in my household, we kind of work together, even though we do practice positive discipline. So also, the next one is I. So in the acronym LIFE, the next one is I, which is inspire. We inspire each other. My children and I, we inspire each other. I inspire them to go out and have that emotional freedom, and to, live in their gift, live in their truth. I'm able to do that through homeschooling, and every day they're able to practice on what they're good at. I have 4 children again, so it's like each child has a different gift. One child is just academically advanced, while the other just can make a dress or a hat out of anything, and walk down the runway. While the other child is, more gifted in physical strength, while the other one is just gifted with other attributes like being more philosophical and all that. So I'm able to individualize their learning in different areas of their being. So they're able to just live in their truth and live in their gift, which is really inspiring for me. So when I communicate with them, I'm always communicating on their level. So I'm able to do that as a homeschool mom. I am able to communicate individually to each child. I don't have to have just one curriculum fits all. Each child has their own thing. And it's very liberating because I know that they're learning. So every minute is a teachable moment. Um, so it's like I create a very much of a can-do environment. Oftentimes we, as parents and teachers and caregivers, what we do is we have this thing where we tell our children, like, don't do this, don't do that. You can't run, you can't this, you can't that. But then we kind of counter that and come back and say, when a child says, I can't tie my shoe or I can't read, we say, don't ever say the word can't. Can't isn't a good word to use, or and all that kind of stuff. Be positive. Well, it's hard to be positive in a can't environment. So what I created in my household is like I can do environment. Instead of saying, don't do this or don't do that, I use a lot of feelings and words. I'll say, I feel that you should walk. I feel that maybe you can write. better this way, or things like that. It's the way we come to our children and talk to our children, it sets the tone. So if we're saying that don't ever say can't, no, don't ever give up, we have to create a can do environment. We have to change our words around. We have to reframe. So it's a different mindset. So you have to watch what you say, the kind of words that you speak to your children. If you want them to be able to achieve greatness and you want them to go out into this world and be a contributing, member, somebody who, wants to succeed and not give up and all that, well, then we have to start from birth. We have to start when they're little to have that can-do attitude. And it takes for us parents to have a can-do, to create that can-do environment and to foster that can-do environment. The next one is F, which is feel all the feels. F is basically feel all the feels, meaning let your child feel what they're feeling at that moment. Make sure that you're paying attention to your child in what they're feeling. If your child feels like they're sad, let them go through the sadness. Ask them, what does sad look like? What does your sad look like? If your child is feeling depressed or anxious, ask them what that looks like. Why are they feeling that way? We have to let our children feel all of that. I think people, especially adults, we forget that children are just really little people with all these big feelings wrapped up inside this little body. So let them feel all of that. Don't ever negate or, counteract what they're feeling, or say, oh, you're not feeling sad, or stop crying, or, boys don't cry, or, you're too old to cry, or you're too young to feel depressed. We should never be able, or we should never, disregard what our children are feeling at that point in time, because then it takes away from that trust, that rapport, and that bond as a parent. Whether you're a homeschooling parent or not, we should be able to foster that love of telling what you feel or speaking your truth. So in order to do that, we have to make sure that we're allowing our children to feel all those things and to process that with them and to help them through that, instead of negating or disregarding what they are feeling. So basically, I did another conference before or a training where it was titled, "It's Okay Not to Be Okay." And so we should always tell our children that, or, make sure that we're fostering that love for truth, because we live in a society now where perfectionism is something that everybody's striving for, which is great, but to an extent of, depression or anxiety. People are afraid to actually accomplish their dreams and accomplish their goals if they're not perfect. We have to make sure that our children know it's okay not to be okay, and that everything may not be perfect, but it's okay. Let's process this. How can we strive for greatness either way? And also, so the E in life would be embracing uniqueness. And that's just basically nurturing our children's hearts, making sure that we're looking beyond their behavior. Oftentimes, like I said, I have 4 children who are active and who have all these great personalities, and sometimes it can be a mix of greatness and then stubborn and strong-minded and strong-willed and all that. We have to make sure that we're fostering positive discipline. And a couple of ways that you can foster positive discipline is making sure that we are fostering, our positive discipline in an environment that is safe, that is nurturing, and that that helps our children and grow and encourages that growth. And how we encourage that growth is that, children, will respect and trust us as adults, parents, in situations when they know they're going to be honored for telling the truth. They're going to be encouraged to, be okay with making mistakes. But in order for that to happen, we have to make sure that our environment is safe. So when we encourage positive discipline, in my household, we don't do the spankings, we don't do any physical corporal punishment, but what we do is that we make sure that we create an environment that is conducive not only to learning, but is also conducive even if you make a mistake. And when you make mistakes, you're going to be talked to. There's going to be consequences. Of course, maybe you can't watch TV, but you're going to have something to do in place of it that is purposeful and with meaning. But as far as, corporal punishment goes, that creates an environment of just putting a band-aid on something, but it's not really getting to the root of the issue. So in order for us to have that healthy communication with our children, we have to get into that mindset of, in our minds, what did we do? What has happened to us traditionally growing up as children? And why were we spanked? Did it solve the problem? Now, did it foster respect or did it foster fear? Now we're, battling fear versus respect. And if you want the respect versus the fear, then we're going to have to foster that positive discipline in our environments. So when you are communicating with your children, you have to, one, make sure that they're safe, that this environment is an environment where they can live in their truth, where they're able to live in their gift, where they're able to be appreciated for their gift. And it's all about appreciation. A lot of times children want to know that not only do you love them because you have to, but because they want to know that you like them. They want to know that they're being liked. They want to know that if you were not their parent, would they be a good person to spend time with? And then children will automatically just want to build with you, to learn with you, to go into that learning, that self-love of learning, and focus on that dual empowerment with you. So I mean, it's really a fun, a liberating time. Homeschooling is. It's a journey, but it's also a reflection of who I am and also how I was raised. And it just helps me to reset and reflect on some of the traditional beliefs that I once had and what I had to let go of in order to be the best parent that I can be. So a lot of reflection, a lot of resetting on my part, a lot of cultural beliefs having to go and, be ripped up and thrown out the window in order for me to be able to enjoy this journey. And also being able to let go of the labels that schools put on children too. As a parent, when I was a new parent, hearing ADHD thrown out there, hearing, just ODD, oppositional defiant disorder, you kids get labeled right off the bat as soon as they enter kindergarten or first grade. And being a school counselor and a therapist, I got caught up in all that too. But now just being able to spend more time with my children and understanding who they are and understanding who they're not, now I see, they don't need labels. Really, all they need is nurturing. They need love. They need attention. And they need to be appreciated for the people that they are, just like what we would want, So it's just been a journey. It's been very liberating. And I encourage people not only to homeschool, but even if, homeschooling doesn't work for you and your family, but to, encourage healthy communication. Make sure that's your goal, is to communicate healthily with your child. Because at the end, after school is done, when your child grows up, that's what you're going to want. You're going to want to have that relationship in the end. So that is my spiel. I don't want to go, I can talk all day about it, but that is it. I would love to thank everyone for joining me and being a part of this and listening to my rant, but to this information about homeschooling and healthy communication. I really appreciate it.